the ancient philosophy that can help you overcome any challenge. The slave who became philosophy's greatest teacher. Picture this: a man born into slavery, crippled by his master's cruelty, living in chains in ancient Rome. Now imagine that same man becoming one of history's most influential philosophers, teaching Roman emperors and shaping minds for 2,000 years. His secret? A philosophy so powerful it helped him endure torture, survive imperial persecution, and find peace in the most brutal circumstances imaginable. That philosophy was Stoicism, and its lessons are perhaps more relevant today than ever before. The year was approximately 55 CE. In the household of Epictetus, a wealthy and notoriously cruel freedman who served Emperor Nero, a young slave named Epictetus spent his days performing menial tasks and enduring regular beatings. One day, according to legend, as Epictetus twisted the young slave's leg for some minor infraction, Epictetus calmly remarked, "You are going to break my leg." When his master continued, and the leg snapped with a sickening crack, Epictetus simply said, "Did I not tell you that you would break it?" This wasn't bravery or bravado. It was the beginning of a revolution in human thought. The birth of an unbreakable mind. Epictetus would walk with a limp for the rest of his life, yet he never spoke of his injury with bitterness. Instead, he focused on what his master could never take from him: his mind, his will, and his freedom to choose his response to circumstances. This distinction between what we can control and what we cannot became the cornerstone of Stoic philosophy and would later help countless people navigate life's most harrowing challenges. But to understand how Epictetus developed this philosophy, we must first travel back another century to the painted halls of ancient Athens, where Stoicism was born from crisis. In 301 BCE, a Phoenician merchant named Zeno of Citium lost everything. His ship, loaded with valuable purple dye worth a fortune, sank in a storm near Athens. Shipwrecked, penniless, and stranded in a foreign city, Zeno wandered into a bookshop where he heard someone reading aloud from the works of Socrates. Captivated, he asked the bookseller, "Where can I find men like this?" The bookseller pointed to a philosopher passing by, Crates of Thebes. Zeno became his student, and from that catastrophic loss emerged a philosophy that would transform how humans approach adversity. Zeno began teaching at the Stoa Poikile, a painted colonnade in Athens, which gave the philosophy its name, Stoicism. The timing couldn't have been more perfect. The ancient world was in turmoil. Alexander the Great's death had plunged the Mediterranean into chaos. Kingdoms rose and fell overnight. Plague, war, and political upheaval were constant companions. People desperately needed a philosophy that could help them survive uncertainty and suffering. Stoicism offered something radical. True freedom didn't come from external circumstances, but from mastering your own mind. The three pillars of inner strength. The early Stoics built their philosophy on three interconnected principles that sound deceptively simple, but are devastatingly powerful when applied. First, the dichotomy of control. Stoics divided everything in life into two categories: things within our control and things outside it. Within our control are our thoughts, judgments, desires, and actions. Outside is literally everything else: other people's opinions, the weather, the past, the future, our reputation, and even our own bodies to a large extent. This wasn't philosophical navel-gazing. It was survival strategy. By focusing energy only on what they could control, Stoics avoided the psychological torture of trying to change the unchangeable. They found peace not by controlling their circumstances, but by controlling their response to circumstances. Second, living according to nature. The Stoics believed humans possess reason, and living according to nature meant living according to our rational nature. This didn't mean becoming emotionless robots. Rather, it meant not being enslaved by emotions driven by false beliefs. Fear of death? Based on the false belief that death is evil. Rage at insults? Based on the false belief that others' opinions define our worth. Anxiety about the future? Based on the false belief that we know what will happen. Third, virtue as the sole good. For Stoics, the only true good was virtue, wisdom, justice, courage, and self-discipline. Everything else, health, wealth, reputation, even life itself, was merely preferred indifferent, valuable, perhaps, but not necessary for the good life. This radical claim freed them from the tyranny of external circumstances. When philosophy met empire. As Stoicism spread through the Mediterranean, it attracted followers from every social class. Slaves embraced it, merchants studied it, generals commanded by it. But perhaps its most dramatic test came when it reached the corridors of power in Rome itself. By the time Epictetus gained his freedom and began teaching, Stoicism had become the unofficial philosophy of the Roman elite. But its principles were about to face their ultimate trial. Could a philosophy born in adversity also sustain those at the pinnacle of power? Enter Marcus Aurelius, born in 121 CE into a wealthy senatorial family. Adopted by Emperor Antoninus Pius, Marcus was groomed from age 17 to become ruler of the greatest empire the world had known. He had every advantage: wealth, education, health, and the finest teachers money could hire. Yet Marcus Aurelius would face challenges that would break most men. The Antonine Plague swept through the empire, killing millions. Germanic tribes invaded across the Danube. His trusted co-emperor and adoptive brother Lucius Verus suddenly died. His wife, whom he dearly loved, likely betrayed him. His son Commodus showed signs of the cruelty and instability that would later nearly destroy Rome. Marcus himself suffered from chronic illness, possibly stomach ulcers, that caused him constant pain. During his military campaigns along the frontier, often sleeping in a tent while sick, dealing with rebellions and plagues and the weight of empire, Marcus turned to Stoicism. But he didn't publish treatises or give public lectures. Instead, he wrote notes to himself, reminders, pep talks, philosophical exercises to maintain his sanity and virtue. These personal writings, never meant for publication, would eventually become one of history's most influential books, Meditations.
The Emperor's Secret Notebook. When you wake up in the morning, tell yourself, the people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly, Marcus wrote. This wasn't pessimism, it was preparation. By anticipating difficulty, he couldn't be thrown off balance by it. You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. That last phrase deserves special attention because it captures something profound about the Stoic approach. Obstacles aren't just things to endure. They're opportunities to practice virtue. The difficult person teaches patience. The illness teaches endurance. The betrayal teaches forgiveness. The challenge that seems like it's blocking your path actually is the path, because overcoming it is how you develop character. Marcus ruled for nearly 2 decades, and by all accounts, he was one of history's most capable and just emperors. When plague struck, he sold his own imperial treasures to fund relief efforts. When wars threatened, he led from the front, despite his poor health. When advisors suggested massacring entire Germanic tribes, he argued for mercy and integration instead. His reign wasn't perfect, no reign is, but it demonstrated that Stoic philosophy could work even at the pinnacle of power and responsibility. Perhaps especially there, where the temptations of absolute authority could corrupt absolutely. The philosophy that wouldn't die. After Marcus Aurelius died in 180 CE, his son Commodus undid much of his father's work, and the empire entered a period of crisis. Stoicism as a formal school gradually faded. Christianity, which shared some Stoic elements, became dominant. For centuries, Stoic texts gathered dust in monastery libraries. But the philosophy never truly died. It simply went underground, its principles absorbed into Western thought so thoroughly that we often don't recognize their origin. When Thomas Jefferson wrote about inalienable rights, he was echoing Stoic ideas about human dignity that no external power can touch. When the Serenity Prayer asks for the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference, it's restating Epictetus's Dichotomy of Control. When Nelson Mandela emerged from 27 years in prison without bitterness, focused on reconciliation rather than revenge, he was living Stoic principles, whether he called them that or not. The same pattern appears throughout history. Admiral James Stockdale, shot down over Vietnam in 1965, survived 7 years of torture in the Hanoi Hilton by applying lessons from Epictetus. "You are going to break my leg," Epictetus had said to his master. Stockdale told himself, "You can take away my body, but you cannot take away my mind." He returned home with honor, helped his fellow prisoners survive, and later wrote that Stoicism saved his life and his sanity. Why ancient wisdom matters now. We might think we have little in common with ancient Romans. We have smartphones, modern medicine, democracy, human rights. We're surely beyond needing a 2,000-year-old philosophy, aren't we? Yet consider the challenges we face: economic uncertainty, political polarization, climate anxiety, social media turning everyone into a public figure subject to instant judgment, the pressure to project perfect lives while dealing with private struggles, the constant barrage of news about things we cannot control, the erosion of community and the rise of isolation. In many ways, our challenges mirror those of the ancient world. We too live in an age of uncertainty, where the ground feels unstable, where events beyond our control can upend our lives overnight. We too struggle with finding meaning, maintaining relationships, dealing with difficult people, facing illness and mortality, and figuring out how to live well despite it all. Stoicism offers practical tools, not just abstract theories. It's a philosophy you practice, not just study. The daily practice of freedom. The ancient Stoics developed specific exercises, many of which are remarkably applicable today. Morning meditation. Before the day begins, anticipate what challenges might arise and how you'll respond virtuously. This prevents you from being caught off guard and reacting emotionally rather than rationally. Negative visualization. Regularly imagine losing what you value, not to be morbid, but to appreciate what you have and prepare psychologically for loss. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself that his loved ones were mortal, not to be depressed, but to cherish them fully while they lived. The view from above. Picture yourself from a great height, seeing your problems in the context of a city, a continent, the earth, the cosmos. This perspective check prevents minor inconveniences from feeling like catastrophes. Evening review. Before sleep, review the day. Where did you live according to your values? Where did you fall short? What can you do better tomorrow? This isn't about guilt, but honest self-improvement. Voluntary discomfort. Periodically practice mild discomfort, a cold shower, skipping a meal, sleeping on the floor. This builds resilience and proves that comfort isn't necessary for contentment. These aren't theoretical exercises. They're psychological training, like going to the gym for your mind. When crisis strikes, you don't rise to the occasion. You fall to the level of your training.
The unexpected gift of obstacles. Perhaps Stoicism's most counterintuitive teaching is that we need adversity. We don't just endure challenges, we grow through them. Steel isn't forged in comfort, but in fire. Character isn't built during easy times, but hard ones. This doesn't mean seeking out suffering. That's masochism, not philosophy. Rather, it means recognizing that the difficulties you face aren't interruptions to your life, but integral parts of it. There where the real work happens. Think about the people you most admire. Rarely are they those who've had easy lives. Usually, they're people who faced tremendous challenges and responded with courage, wisdom, and grace. The challenge didn't break them. It revealed and strengthened what was best in them. You have that same capacity, not because you're special, because you're human. The same rational faculty that allowed Epictetus to endure slavery with dignity, that helped Marcus Aurelius carry the weight of empire, that enables ordinary people to survive extraordinary circumstances, exists in you. The modern Stoic. So what does it mean to practice Stoicism today? It doesn't require togas or reading Greek. It doesn't mean becoming cold or emotionless. It means applying ancient wisdom to modern life. When someone cuts you off in traffic, you can choose rage or acceptance. The Stoic chooses acceptance, not because the driver was right, but because anger serves no purpose and only disturbs your own peace. When you face job loss, illness, or heartbreak, you can choose to see yourself as a victim of cruel fate or as someone facing an opportunity to demonstrate resilience. The Stoic chooses resilience. When social media makes you feel inadequate or angry, you can remember that you control your attention and your judgments, not what others post. The Stoic controls what they can. When you face your own mortality or that of loved ones, you can rage against the universe or accept that impermanence makes life precious. The Stoic chooses acceptance. This isn't easy. The Stoics never claimed it was. Marcus Aurelius had to remind himself of basic principles daily because applying them was hard work, but it's work worth doing. The philosophy that sets you free. Epictetus, the crippled former slave, became so influential that his lectures were recorded by his student Arian and studied throughout the empire. He taught that no one could truly enslave him because his mind was free. The chains on his body were external, indifferent, not touching what truly mattered. Marcus Aurelius, with all the power in the world, recognized that external power was also indifferent to what truly mattered. He could command armies, but couldn't control whether people loved him genuinely. He could decree laws, but couldn't decree virtue in himself. That required the same inner work required of a slave. The remarkable thing about Stoicism is that it placed the slave and the emperor on exactly equal footing when it came to what mattered most, living according to virtue and reason. External circumstances might differ wildly, but the capacity for wisdom, justice, courage, and self-discipline was universal. This radical equality of human dignity, this emphasis on what we all share rather than what divides us, made Stoicism revolutionary in its time and remains revolutionary today. Your own philosophy. The ancient Stoics would be the first to tell you not to accept their teachings blindly. Test them. Try them in your own life. See if focusing on what you control rather than what you don't brings peace. See if reframing obstacles as opportunities changes your experience. See if practicing small discomforts builds resilience for bigger challenges. You don't need to call yourself a Stoic or read ancient texts, though both can help. You simply need to recognize a fundamental truth that humans discovered thousands of years ago and keep rediscovering in every generation. We cannot control what happens to us, but we absolutely can control how we respond. That response is where your freedom lies, not in having unlimited options or perfect circumstances, but in choosing your character regardless of circumstances. Not in life going according to plan, but in maintaining your values when it doesn't. Not in avoiding challenges, but in meeting them with wisdom and courage. 2,000 years ago, a crippled slave found freedom in philosophy while living in chains. An emperor found peace in philosophy while carrying the weight of the world. Soldiers found courage in it on ancient battlefields. Prisoners found dignity in it in modern concentration camps. The challenges you face are real and difficult. The philosophy that helped all those people won't make your challenges disappear, but it can change how you face them. It can help you find, as Epictetus promised, that happiness and freedom begin with a clear understanding of one principle. Some things are within our control, and some things are not. Everything truly important, your character, your values, your response to life, lies within your control. That simple truth, understood and applied, can help you overcome any challenge. The ancient wisdom still works. It's been tested for 2 millennia across cultures and circumstances. Now it's your turn to test it. The question isn't whether you'll face challenges. You will. The question is who you'll become as you face them.